So Nisha has a quote. He says, "Those who were seen dancing were thought to be insane by those who couldn't hear the music." Understanding that it's a process and being patient with yourself. It may be an extreme that it took me 7 years before things popped, although I'm grateful for that time in that I was able to sort of hone my craft. But there's a lot of patience and self-belief and being gentle with yourself while also, it's like being patiently aggressive. And so my thought is whether it's YouTube or any type of business, just give yourself grace and understand that people are going to say it's crazy and it's not going to make sense. You have to be the one that sees it.
Hello and welcome to Marketing Speak. I'm your host, Stephan Spencer. It is my pleasure to have Eddie Pinero with us. Eddie is an international speaker, video producer, and the founder of Your World Within, which has over 250 million views worldwide. His goal is to inspire others to live their best lives. On YouTube alone, he has over 773,000 subscribers, 138 million views, and 1,000 videos. Eddie, you are prolific, and it's so great to have you on the show.
Thanks, Stephan. So good to be here, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so we know each other through Genius Network, Joe Polish's mastermind. I really think highly of your work. You're doing, you're revealing light in the world in a very powerful way, not just with your view counts and your subscriber numbers, but just your presence and your intentionality. So I'd love to start with your hero's journey story, your origin story. How did you get into this whole kind of changing the world through personal development videos sort of route?
Yeah, well, first of all, that means a lot to hear that. Because the goal is to connect with people through storytelling and just kind of sharing my wins and losses in a way where wherever you are, whatever you're doing, you can grab something and be like, okay, there's value here. This applies to my life. So it's just a nice way to put that. But yeah, it wasn't something I sought out to do necessarily, which is funny because it's like my life purpose and I love it. And I'm just so, immersed in it. But starting out, it was more of a process of kind of chopping off the things that I didn't like. So very, I want to say, quote unquote, traditional track or career trajectory in the United States, where it was like, getting good grades in high school, to go to a good college, to find a good job in the corporate, I was in the financial sector for a little bit in insurance and kind of working my way up the corporate ladder and just looked around and felt like, sure, I'm learning a lot and there are some incredible people here. I'm still friends with many of them today, but it's just not where I'm supposed to be. It's not where I could have the most impact. And I just, left for a year and really delved into my creativity. And so it was the scariest year of my life, but I think it was the most important in terms of I was, playing acoustic guitar, like playing shows around Boston, like singer-songwriter stuff. Was taking the video camera out, making videos, little documentaries, was writing, creative writing for different outlets, different blogs. And I, things changed when some time had passed and reality hit. And it went from like, it's cool to leave your job and like be the creator / entrepreneur. But then you're like, oh, it was great to have a paycheck. It was great to have money and not be scared when you get out of bed every day or worried about, a lot of these things. And I wrote this speech called Ode to Excellence that was kind of a promise to myself. Hey, I was about 26, 27, and it was like for the first time in your adult life, put your back against the wall, be bold, take a risk. Because I had a feeling I wouldn't let myself down or I'd figure it out. But that's only a hypothesis. You don't know until you test it, right? And so I put this together and I got to do a little bit of all these things I loved. Were like the music creation and taking the speech, writing the speech, recording the speech, right? Because of my music background, I had access to Pro Tools and I could edit the vocals and mix it all together and create this little cinematic movie, and I just had a blast, and it meant everything. It was so indicative of where I was, and I released it on YouTube and started getting this feedback that was like, you have no idea how much I relate to this. Thank you for this. Like, I need courage right now, or I'm doing this. Maybe it's a divorce, or it was an athlete or a student that just failed the test or whatever. And right? At that moment, it's like, okay, I love doing this. It's helping people. Let's go.
Mm.
And that was sort of the inception of the brand and the idea behind what I do.
And so, what are some of the heartwarming success stories that you get via email or voice memos or whatever, however it comes in?
Yeah, there's some beautiful things. And it's cool because, I think you mentioned the numbers. Um, like so much of what we do is so digital and it looks like views and downloads and listens, that you can become numb to it. It just feels like statistics. But when you get an email, it's like, makes it real. It's really nice.
Yeah.
But just some really incredible things like creating things for people's weddings, um, helping folks going through different things, or I was lost and this happened, or I've had people that said they were on the verge of suicide and through coincidence came across one of my speeches or talks. People that listened to something and were overweight and started running, and they'll send a picture of a medal at the end of a marathon. I mean, stuff that like makes me choke up thinking about it. It's just such a beautiful thing, and it's just this reminder that everyone's fighting a battle, like truly. And yeah, so it's that is the best part, getting to hear sort of the impact.
Yeah, amazing. So, how do you monetize and build a business that isn't just you? So you're not self-employed. You're building an asset called a business or a corporation, so that you could eventually perhaps sell it, and it's not so tied to your personal brand.
I've gone back and forth and made a lot of moves in the past year, even very recently, right? So um, a lot of it, it's just been I've been doing about 10 years. And for about 8 of the 10 years, it's just been a shotgun approach, right? Where it's just me, self-educated in editing and video production and all these things, kind of mixing it together. And, I love the art of it. But then there's like the pragmatic piece to your point where it's like, if you want to build it into a business, it can't all be you, right? So I've begrudgingly removed myself from some parts of the creative process. Just had someone come in and sort of create some standard operating procedures, some of the back and forth with my editors and social media managers, and sort of tighten it up a little bit. But I keep finding myself dialing back um, that structure, because I do think it's necessary, but also I think, I don't consider myself an entrepreneur as much as I consider myself a creative. And I know that might sound like semantics, but for me, when I think about myself as an entrepreneur, I act in a way that feels more outcome oriented, if that makes sense. When I think about myself as a creator, I think more of the process and making something that's beautiful. And when I do that, like the revenue and the audience and all that stuff has been a lagging indicator. It's like follow your heart, make things that matter, and good things tend to come. Which I know is sort of a controversial thing. It's a little bit, but like that's been my North Star. And I monetize primarily through ads, just like a TV station would. So it's like AdSense on YouTube, on the podcast, it's sponsorships, getting millions of views a month. And so there's a lot of ways to monetize that in terms of advertisements. And then uh, the beauty of something like YouTube, where absolutely it generates income, and that's an important part of what I do. But like what's often overlooked is that's a window to the world. I mean, that's the best marketing out there. I get dozens of speaking inquiries a month just based on people seeing videos and things like that. So, um, a lot of the speaking I do is part of the process and sort of supplements everything else, creates one big kind of overarching picture.
Right. And do you have an agency that does like video production and YouTube optimization? for clients, or are you just primarily just doing it for yourself?
I have been a student of one Evan Carmichael for a very long time, who's helped me with the YouTube sort of titling and SEO and optimizing just for YouTube. Um, but in terms of my help, it's been people I've found. Sort of my social media manager is a longtime fan, who's like, I'd love to contribute. And at the time, I didn't have room for it. Then when I did, gave her a shout and ended up being, she's one of the most brilliant people I know and a huge part of the success of the channel and the brand. But the editors are people that I've found and sort of just trained. So it's, yeah, a culmination of a lot of different folks.
And what would be some of the best tips or gems that you've gotten from either Evan Carmichael or from your internal team or from attending masterminds and various events or just through figuring stuff out on your own, like reverse engineering?
I would ask what level of detail. So like, like tactically, like how
Yeah.
to create content that will. I think one of the biggest things is understanding that winning on each platform looks different. So YouTube, for example, watch time is king, and so as a creator, you have to adjust your content for that. There's actually in one of Evan's masterminds, I showed this chart, and I talk about it all the time. It was just a profound, kind of like a light bulb moment where I wrote 3 minute speeches. They mimicked songs essentially, right? Where you got a slow kind of a build and then a crescendo at the end, very short, very emotive. And I was posting these for about 6 or 7 years. And I started working with Evan, and he's like, look, uh, YouTube values longer videos. So even if everyone watched 100% of this 3 minute video, if they watched 40% of a 20-minute video, you'd be better off.
Hmm.
And so I started to, you know what I mean? Just adjust how I wrote and create compilations that were a little bit longer in nature. And my channel went like boom, straight up. So I remember showing my an audience that at a mastermind, and was thinking they would look at the chart and they would say like, Eddie, how did you, do the thumbnails? How did you, what was the difference in titling? But the only thing they were asking about was like, how did you not quit for 7 years? It was like, how did you hang in there, you know, for so long before you got that payoff? Because it really was a long time.
So a 7 year overnight success, right?
Oh my God, yeah. And it didn't feel like that long, right? When you're in it, it's just like your life. But it's fun to look back now, and yeah, and the changes that made it pop off. Like I said, it was the watch time. It was um, titling things. Like I was titling them very artsy, dancing before the music plays, and it's like, look, I get it. That's nice. No one's going to search for that. Not only that, YouTube doesn't know what it is. They don't know how to categorize it. So like being a lot more methodical about the titling, about identifying, hey, here's what this video represents. Here's how it can help you. The thumbnail matches that. It's clickable. Things like that, where I wasn't crazy about making those changes, but it's like you can be stubborn and have your stuff hide on the bottom of YouTube for all of eternity, or you can be pragmatic and win. And yeah, that combination was a turning point.
Are there any things that you refused to give in to the YouTube algorithm and just do it your way, regardless if it didn't pay off with the view counts and the watch time? You did it your way, anyways.
Yeah, I mean the writing process. It's like I think one of the challenges with being unknown is you're unknown and you're in a space where people are sharing Tony Robbins and Denzel Washington and some of these people. And so, there in a lot of ways could have been beneficial to mix their stuff into mine or take ideas or things like that. And it was like, well, if this is a slow burn, it's a slow burn. But I'm like, I really held the authentic storytelling dearly, like close to I'm like, I'm either going to win or lose doing this, but I want it to be sort of an electronic journal of my life. and the things that I've experienced. So there were shortcuts. And by the way, sometimes I did, I'd bite and do things because they were the shiny object. But I always realized and kind of reeled it back in eventually. It's trial and error.
Yeah, some things were just kind of I don't know, of the moment type of opportunities that just disappeared as quickly as they came, like challenges. Challenges were all the thing, and then they weren't.
Right, webinars, right? There's just so many of those things that are like, and you hear someone say, hey, I've had so much success with my audience doing X. And so it's like, okay, X is the way to go. And then you realize, hey, I'm not them. I'm different than them. Trust your process. Doesn't mean be ignorant, but try things. But you have to stay aligned. Uh, and I think that comes first and foremost.
Yeah. One thing that I think makes all the sense in the world, and a lot of people are not seeing this, is YouTube is an evergreen platform for social media content, essentially, and TikTok and you know Instagram, these other platforms are very much kind of the moment type platforms. So if you're going to post something, you have this short shelf life, and 3 weeks, 3 months later, you're not going to get any views or any play off of that content anymore. So um, how do you uh, decide what to work on and how much to invest in each of these platforms, considering how different they are from each other, and how YouTube is the standalone platform for evergreen content, video content?
Yeah, such a good question. I mean, to your point, my the channel, the video on my channel that does the best is from like 4 years ago, and still today. I mean, it does. There's over the course of the last 10 years, there's 10 videos, right, that make up 90% of where the subs come from and the revenue and all the. It's an asset. I mean, it truly is, and understanding that's really valuable. In in creating them. So I always place way more priority on long form. Um, the depth of just relationship you get with your listener is so much deeper. I don't even put reels, short form content, on my YouTube channel anymore because it's just a different type of viewer, right? Like it costs nothing. It takes no time to watch 10 seconds and flip and flip and flip. But if you sit down and you watch a 40-minute video, let alone a few times a week, the connection you have there and the community you're building is just super powerful. So that's always where the crux of my attention goes. But also, I'm not an idiot. I understand the value of Instagram and TikTok. It's just a different game. And I don't think I'm playing that game. I'm not optimizing for that as well as I could be. Because right now, what I'm doing is taking like a lot of pieces of the long form and posting it there. And it does well. And there's an audience for that. But TikTok is about raw authenticity. It's picking up the camera, saying what's on your mind in your car, responding to things. It's a lot of back and forth. It's sloppy intentionally. So that's something that we have on our radar to start transitioning to pretty soon here. But I just don't value them the same. I almost think of TikTok as a hook to get people to the long form content. I don't see it as a means to an end in and of itself.
So what is the end? What's the end game?
It's to continue to grow and cultivate a community of people looking to improve their lives. And it's, through storytelling on YouTube, on the podcast, it's live engagements, speaking engagements. And I'm also building a community slash academy where it's like, I'm realizing a lot of folks, some of them I'm in touch with pretty frequently, but some of it's just observing. They'll watch videos every day. And I'm beyond grateful for that, right? I listen to motivation every morning on the shower, whatever it is, just for a few minutes or so, just prime the mind. But there's a so what question as well. Because if you're just going for the dopamine hit and not improving anything, um, there's not no value there. And so I'm trying to build a community of people that can help each other get from 0 to 1 in whatever area of their life they're in, and sort of supplement the media side.
Cool. And what's your creative process? The scripting, the narrating, the B-roll, the editing, and the use of AI, perhaps all that. What's it look like?
Yeah, big opportunity for me to leverage AI. I really haven't done much with that other than thumbnails. Um, but the creative process is like, I'll have Evernote, and just as I'm going, about my day, I'll write down thoughts, things that happen to me, things I hear. Um, for example, our conversation before we hit record. Just different ideas. And I'm like, this is a great 8 to 10 minute thought that could help someone, see things a little bit differently. And so what I'll do is when it's time to write, I'll go into Evernote, I'll pick one and decide based on the theme, is this sort of like an intense crescendo-esque, like a pregame before your team goes out onto the field type thing? Is it slow? Is it thought-provoking? Is it philosophical? And I'll pick music that I feel like works for that. Um, Put the music in Pro Tools, loop it, and write as the music's playing, so that the message matches the intensity, the feel of the music. Because people aren't practical, we're emotional, and I just think in order to get someone to act, you can't tell them. You have to make them feel why they should. And so that's my thought process around the actual pouring of words onto the screen. And as simple as grabbing the mic, recording, um, sending the audio to my video guy, and he goes and grabs the shot of me speaking, as well as some B-roll, and very good about putting a story together. And out it goes, out the door.
And how do you do the thumbnails and the titling and the playlists, all that sort of stuff that Evan teaches? And by the way, I've had Evan on the podcast, so there's some great tips in his interview.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I'll have to check it out. Yeah, that's stuff we've been going over for a long time. So the important thing about YouTube is essentially, um, you win or lose on YouTube dependent on YouTube's willingness to recommend your videos. So you very rarely are people going to search for you, particularly if you're in an evergreen space like I am. If you're truly going to win, it's because videos similar to yours while they're playing are recommending you underneath them. And so the question goes, how, as a creator, do I make that possible? You choose titles that are similar or maybe even the same and give your own take. Thumbnails, it's understanding that, faces tend to do best. Um, but silhouettes sometimes do, and there's a lot of testing. I test sometimes as many as 10 or 15 thumbnails a day on my back catalog of stuff. Because that makes a big difference. If with one thumbnail it's being clicked 4% of the time, and with another one it's clicked 5.5% of the time, that equates to thousands of views on that video. And then YouTube goes, oh, okay, well, we'll start sharing the other stuff. And there's sort of this ripple effect. So just really being cognizant of what's working, how YouTube's categorizing you, where your audience is coming from, and just how to maximize that exposure.
So I'm seeing a certain style to thumbnails these days that's pretty different from what I've seen in the recent past. With the big close up head of whoever the guest is and a few words next to it that are punchy and enticing, captivating. I'm seeing more like the Mr. Beast, the new style of Mr. Beast thumbnails showing up more and more, and they look almost cartoony and a little outrageous, a little maybe over the top for me. And I haven't implemented any thumbnails like that. I'm curious what your thoughts are on that.
Um, so if they work, sure. I mean, there's an Overton window. Like there's a window in which I'm willing to flex, right? Because you have to test, you have to try things, but like motivation in and of itself is sort of a serious thing. And so I think of serious faces and sort of darker colors. If I started doing like the Mr. Beast, kind of sloppy text and funny faces, like there'd be too much dissonance. So I'm aware of what's working within the space and am willing to push a little bit beyond that. But yeah, staying within sort of the realm of what I think fits the content. And then so what I'll do is I'll test a bunch and, um, it's funny. I did silhouettes for a long time before Evan said, "Hey, make them faces. I guarantee you it'll work." And I tested that, and he was a home run. So right. That was a big part of why I got so much visibility. But now I'm testing silhouettes, and the silhouettes are doing better in maybe 7 out of 10 cases. So it's just this, you're chasing your tail. But when you see those sort of patterns, you go, okay, so then let's create 10 more silhouette thumbnails. Let's put those out there and let's test those. And so yeah, we're always in the process of seeing what works and what's got the best click through rate.
Yeah. And the way you test thumbnails is with what? TubeBuddy?
I did for a long time. Evan has a program called Brandlytics, which is very similar.
Got it. So you've been using Brandlytics for how long?
A year, maybe.
Okay.
A little less.
What are some of the benefits of Brandlytics over TubeBuddy or vidIQ?
I think so there's 5 categories in Brandlytics, if I'm not mistaken. One of the things that I kept making this mistake on TubeBuddy is like you'll test 2 videos and or 2 thumbnails, and one thumbnail will have a better click-through rate. And so TubeBuddy will say that's the one. But when you really pull back the hood, it's like, yeah, this one has a better click-through rate. But the other one, YouTube decided to show 100,000 more times. And it reached the right people and the watch time was longer. And all these things that are so much more important than the click-through rate, it's like, yeah, if you expand the audience by 300,000, the click-through rate's going to decrease a little bit. So there's just a lot more to the story. And I think Brandlytics does a better job about painting that picture in totality.
Gotcha. Okay. And what about B-roll? How does that fit into the equation? How important is it? Where do you get your B-roll from? Like, what would you advise our listener who's interested in getting more traction on YouTube to do in regards to B-roll?
Yeah. The how important is it question is a fun question. One that I don't necessarily have the answer to, but I have some war stories. So one of the things that I'm learning is, and I don't know how many people this would be a one-to-one fit, but a lot of folks listen to my content while walking, while running. It's on in the car. It's sort of background noise. And I always joke about this because it was sort of life giving me a little slap in the face. 2017 maybe, when the funds were tight, I'll put it that way. And I scraped up what I could and spent a few $1,000 in the desert with some friends. And we had a drone and all of these cameras and made this high production thing running through the desert. They were following me in a Jeep holding a camera on a stabilizer, and released it. And it was very underwhelming response from the audience, which, you win some, lose some, but it hurt. It hurt. And then the next day, or at some point, shortly after that, I wrote a speech talking about how disappointed I was that it didn't work, and didn't even use B-roll. Just put like a thumbnail. It was just like a one image with the audio going on under it, and did like 10 times, the views, and got great feedback. And Eddie, this is so relatable. And that was my light bulb moment where it's like, okay, maybe this doesn't matter as much as I thought it did. It's the story and it's the audio, and it's taking people on a journey. So I like to use B-roll to help paint the picture. Like, I think it has to supplement the story. But to me, in a lot of ways, it's filler. I don't think it's going to make or break the video or the reception to the video. It adds some ambiance, and that's the ROI there. In terms of where I get them, a bunch of different stock libraries. I'm subscribed to um, ArtGrid, Film Pack. Man, there's a few more. TechSmith Assets. There's so many now, and it's great because you don't need to pay. Like, I don't know if you remember the old days. You'd have to pay per video. Now most of it's membership. You pay up front and just kind of get the clips. So it's very easy to do that.
And are you exploring using AI to create these B-roll videos? Because they're getting quite good, these AI tools.
No, I haven't. I think there's definitely room to play around there, but I just haven't given that the attention it deserves. Definitely with thumbnails, a lot. I mean, I would say everything that we use is generated through AI, but not video.
Yeah, there's a lot happening in the AI world in terms of video creation. It's really impressive.
Yeah, it's probably not something you want to ignore as a YouTube creator. So it's it's on the short list for sure.
So let's talk about hooks and how do you get the right hook, the right kind of foreshadowing, and string the viewer or listener along for an entire episode or long form video.
Yeah, this is a change that I've made not that long ago. So, when you talk about a process, continually evolving over time, I would have sort of a slow musical fade in with some B-roll, and then it would go to me talking, framing it. And now I'm a lot more methodical about um, at zero point 0.1 seconds, it's my face asking an intriguing question or framing what the video is going to be about. And that has helped retention. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's just when I have a theme or a story or something I want to tell, it's just positioning it in a way right out of the gate that's relatable, something that people will understand or that will pull them in. Um, yeah, because again, it's a lot of us. It doesn't matter how specific the example. Um, a lot of us go through some of the same ups and downs, just in different contexts. So I just paint that picture right out of the gate.
So do you get these ideas coming into your head while you're like I don't know, meditating or sleeping, and then you wake up and then you quickly write it down before it disappears, or you have some more methodical type process for coming up with the hooks and the story ideas? Like how does this? I know you mentioned writing stuff down in Evernote, but is there more of a on demand process? If something just presents itself, you're at a mastermind or you're having a conversation with somebody and it's like, wow, that's a great idea. Those are like little gifts, but how do you like intentionally grab that out of the universe?
Yeah, well, there's sort of and I think this is the question you're asking. Like, there's a sort of awareness, like when you tune your brain to look for those things or to find metaphors in daily life, it's like almost it's impossible to shut off. It's like you're always looking for these little stories. So, for example, one that I just wrote yesterday that's going to go out next Monday. I was on the rooftop upstairs in the sauna, and you can see in Scottsdale there's like this Ferris wheel, right? And so, like, just sitting there, in the sauna, and it's like, well, what is a Ferris wheel? It's like it's not fast. It's not an adrenaline rush. It's people driving a long distance, paying money, waiting in line, simply for a change in perspective, right? A different view of the same streets they were walking, same city they live in. It's simply perspective. And so the idea, you can then connect those dots to, you know, that is essentially life. Like when you're down and out, or you're not feeling good, or you're lost, or fill in the blank. It's not that what you want isn't there; it's that you're at the bottom of the Ferris wheel, And so helping that, like starting from that notion, uh, one, it's a relief, but two, like you just come at life differently if you know there's a solution. You just have to change the way you think so that you can get there. So, like, that's a good example. And so, what I did was took that, wrote it in my phone, and I knew that how do I want that to feel? Well, to me, it's a sort of a slower, emotive, expressive thing. When you're in pain, you're not lost. You need to step back and reassess, recalibrate, get to the top. And I found some sort of calming, kind of slower music, played the music, wrote out the script. And I think I'm finally getting to your answer here. It's like when it's all in text, right before I record, I hit pause on the music and I can look at what I've written and ask myself, do the first two sentences pull people in? Is it, if that flashed in front of me, would I want to, go along for that ride? And if not, change it a little bit, make it more enticing. But yeah, the words are right in front of me.
And how do you monetize that with, let's say, sponsorships? Not going to have some, I don't know, kind of like brand placement in the middle of it, interrupting their flow state or their meditative state, right? Or are you?
Yeah, well, I have to be very careful with that. So generally, and this is the sort of the beauty of YouTube is it watch time is king, right? So if I write that speech and it's 8 minutes and I release it, it will see a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of the audience as if I took that same speech and after that added six older ones that are the same feel, same type of messaging. Maybe someone in the same situation would, fall into the same umbrella. Um, it's going to get a lot more distribution. And so that creates very easy gaps in between speeches to drop ads or promote or whatever it is. Yeah, because the last thing you want to do is have someone be in the Zen state or come into an epiphany and have you know, like one of my buddies just started an athletic, like a running sock company. Um, and it was a blast. Like we took the camera, we went out into the desert, we made these running videos and, um, it was fun, but there was like a perfect sort of intuitive spot. Like you wouldn't want that coming like right in the middle of a speech, selling someone socks as they're, parsing through life's mysteries. So yeah, I'm thoughtful about it.
Like, how do you promote your speaking, your like keynotes, and like you're available for high ticket opportunities if you don't pitch that in the video itself? Or do you have like mid-roll ads for your own services, your own like speaking and I don't know if you have a high level coaching program or anything like that, but do you work that in as part of your monetization strategy?
Not directly. So in the description of YouTube videos, there's a hire me to speak portion on my website. It's definitely there. Um, on Instagram, for example, every so often I'll post a shot of me or a video of me on stage speaking to an audience. So subconsciously, sort of priming people, like they know and they understand. But I'm at the point where I'm saying no to more inquiries than yes. In terms of speaking engagements, I'm pretty selective about that. So there may be a point where it's like, hey, let's be proactive about this. Let's get, I have a speaker reel. It's like, let's take that and start doing some targeted advertising, whatever that may be. But right now, not called to do that.
And have you raised your speaking fees since you get more than you can handle?
I have. I mean, that's sort of the beauty of like, when you're not like tied to something, you can just sort of throw a number out there, and it's like, if it's yes, then it's yes. That's exciting, and if it's no, okay. You just keep sort of moving on. But over the years, yeah, definitely increased it. And hopefully there's still a lot of ceiling, a lot of room up there to raise it too. So
I don't know if you feel comfortable sharing what you charge for a keynote speech, but I think I heard somewhere that Malcolm Gladwell, or maybe it was Seth Godin, I don't remember, charges like 100 grand for a speech, something like that. I don't know what. That's that's pretty significant.
I'm not there
Yeah,
yet.
me neither.
That's a lot of dough. Yeah, no, I'm in the 25 to 30 range.
Okay. Are you working on improving your ability to get pricier gigs? Like, for example, there's a program called Heroic Public Speaking that I took. Michael and Amy Port, amazing program. A lot of professional speakers in that who are looking to charge much higher rates for their gigs. And my speaking ability, certainly improved from doing that program. It was multi-month program. I had to fly a bunch of times to New Jersey to their offices and do multi-day trainings with a small cohort. That was really good. Yeah, I've had, by the way, Michael Port on this podcast. He's phenomenal. I highly recommend listening to that episode.
Yeah, I will, and then we'll definitely check them out. Yeah, so what I'm trying to do is make it more interactive. So I have like a setup here where there's always been dissonance in my brain where so much of I feel like the impact and why I love what I do is because it feels like an emotive journey. It feels like a creative process. And, then I'll do some of these keynotes and, I'm biased. I think they're powerful. And I get good reviews and have had great conversations about it, but it feels like there's something missing. It feels like two different things. So I'm trying to find a way to make the live performance more performative. With a backdrop, I'm thinking about integrating um, my guitar and some things that just make it stand out a little bit and make it feel more like a concert, in other words. So I'm playing with that right now, like every day, spending some time on that. And it's funny you mentioned The Alchemist earlier, how that feels like a story of a boy just going through life and learning all these things along the way. Like I want something that's going to follow that timeline, and so I'm sort of writing out that progression. And yeah, I'm really excited about it. It feels like there's a long way to go, but I think if there's anything that's going to take a keynote from 30K to way up there, it's something that unique and immersive.
Yeah, like a one-man show almost. Like,
Yeah, yeah. The question, right? Anyone can say that. The question is like, can you execute? So that's the question here. But I'm confident that I'm on the right track.
yeah, yeah. Well, I think Michael Port could be a great resource for you on that journey. Yeah,
Yeah, I'll definitely look him up.
yeah. If you want, I can make an intro. But yeah, and by the way, for our listener who wasn't privy to our discussion about The Alchemist, do you want to share a little bit about that? Because that was before we hit record. We had a really great conversation about The Alchemist, among other things. So, what do you want to share about that for our listener?
Yeah, it was a cool conversation about. So I had talked about missing an event, and right down the street, and three speakers that I love, and I was just so upset about that. And Stephan was basically like, "Well, you only missed it because it's a story you're telling yourself in your head." And basically, it was the idea of sort of detaching from outcomes and doing what you feel is right, following your intuition and trusting that what's written will be, which is just a beautiful way of looking at things. It's like follow your intuition, do what you believe matters in the moment, and let the chips fall where they may, instead of creating all these extra scenarios and things like that. So, and there's a word. What's the word from The Alchemist that you said sort of mirrors that?
Yeah, Maktoub, Maktub, Arabic. So it's I'm probably misspelling it, but there's a great article on Medium that I shared with you that I'll also include in the show notes for this episode that talks about Maktub and its relevance. So Maktub in Arabic means it is written, and it's in the Quran, but it's also in, of course, The Alchemist, and that's where I first heard of this word and grok to this concept that everything is already written. I love it. I just think it's profound, and if you're meant to meet somebody, then you'll meet them. If you're meant not to meet that person, then why cry over spilt milk? It's like, well, I missed a bunch of opportunities from this event that I couldn't attend or whatever. Well, and you weren't meant to attend the event, and those were not real opportunities. So that's just a mirage.
I love that way of framing it.
Yeah.
It's like the Serenity Prayer. It's like there are things you can control, there are things you can't. Understand the difference. And,
Yep. Yes, and it's the difference. That's where wisdom is, right? So, no, understanding the differences. Please grant me the wisdom to be able to differentiate between these two. That's hard. So anyways, I know we're at time here. So is there any last bit of wisdom that you want to share with our listener or viewer about taking their YouTube presence or their online presence more generally to the next level?
I think just understanding that it's a process and being patient with yourself. And it may be an extreme that it took me 7 years before things popped. Although I'm grateful for that time in that I was able to sort of hone my craft. But there's a lot of patience and self belief and being gentle with yourself while also, it's like being patiently aggressive. So Nisha has a quote. He says, "Those who were seen dancing were thought to be insane by those who couldn't hear the music." And so my thought is, whether it's YouTube or any type of business, just give yourself grace and understand that people are going to say it's crazy and it's not going to make sense. You have to be the one that sees it.
Yeah, that's a great quote. It's awesome. So if our listener wants to follow you, learn from you, subscribe to you, where do we send them?
You can go to YouTube and just search Eddie Pinero, and I have a huge catalog of stuff there. If you have any questions for me or anything like that, Eddie Pinero on Instagram as well, and I'll certainly get back to you ASAP.
Yep. And your website, yourworldwithin.com.
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Eddie. Thank you for sharing your amazing story and all these great bits of wisdom and strategies. If our listener then actually applies this, they'll get a result. If they just took this as entertainment or edutainment, then they get zero value out of it. So this is a nudge to my listener. Please implement at least one thing from this episode. Otherwise, you're wasting all of our time. Your time, my time, Eddie's time. Just don't do that. And of course, have a great week. And we'll catch you on the next episode. I'm your host, Stephan Spencer, signing off.